There's this really pervasive idea that human babies are just, well, fragile.
Oh, totally.
You bring them home from the hospital and they're tiny, they have zero neck control, and you just look at them and think they seem so breakable.
Right. Blyspix.
Yeah. But when you actually look at the biological data specifically,
Yeah.
what happens in those first 6 months? Fragile is really the wrong word. They are essentially these metabolic engines just running in the red.
That is a much better way to frame it, honestly. We tend to see them as these passive little bundles,
Yeah.
just lying there. But physiologically, they're doing more work lying in a crib than a marathon runner does on race day.
And I think that disconnect between what the baby looks like, which is totally helpless, and what the baby is actually doing, which is rapidly constructing a human brain and body from scratch, is where all the parenting anxiety comes from.
Absolutely.
You're watching this process as a parent, and you have no idea if it's going right.
Which perfectly brings us to today's deep dive. We're looking at a pretty comprehensive guide from Dr. Mahesh Yadav. It's on BePeace.in, and it covers infant development and growth in the first 6 months.
It's a great source.
It is. And I want to be clear right off the bat here for everyone listening.
Yeah.
The goal today isn't to give you some kind of checklist so you can grade your baby.
Right. We aren't doing competitive parenting today. No gold stars for rolling over early.
Exactly. The mission of this deep dive is to look at the actual mechanisms. Like, why do they lose weight initially? Why does the head shape change? What is actually happening in the motor cortex when they finally manage to grab a rattle? We really want to separate the old wives' tales from the actual medical red flags.
Let's start with the physics of it. Because the first thing that hits you literally in that very first week is the numbers on the scale.
Oh, yes.
And for a lot of parents, this is the very first panic attack. You feed the kid, they sleep, you feed them again, and you go to the pediatrician a few days later, and
they've shrunk.
They've shrunk. It's terrifying.
It is incredibly counterintuitive. You expect growth immediately. I mean, you're feeding them constantly, right?
Around the clock.
But Dr. Yadav points out that a weight loss of 7 to 10% in the first few days is not just common, it's physiological. It is quite literally supposed to happen.
But 10% is a lot. If I lost 10% of my body weight in 3 days, I'd be in the ICU. Why on earth is the system designed that way?
Because you have to remember, a fetus lives in water. They are hyperhydrated. When they're born, they have to shift from a fluid-based life support system to air.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So that initial weight loss is largely fluid shifts. It's just shedding that excess water weight and the body calibrating to independent digestion. It's a transition cost.
So it's not starvation. It's more like they're just drying out.
Essentially, yeah.
Yeah.
And the data shows the bounce back is just as reliable. By day 10 to 14, they usually cross that birth weight line again.
And once they cross it?
The brakes come off.
Yeah.
Completely.
Yeah, I was looking at the velocity numbers in the source material. It says they double their birth weight by 5 to 6 months. That seems fast, but when you break it down to the daily rate, it's just absurd.
It really is. In the first 3 months, Dr. Yadav notes they gain about 25 to 30 grams per day.
Which is roughly an ounce a day. I want you to just imagine gaining an ounce of muscle, bone, and organ tissue every single day.
It's staggering. And that's exactly why they sleep so much. Building tissue at that rate is metabolically exhausting. It requires massive amounts of energy. But, and here's the key insight for you listening, this growth is not linear.
Right. This is where the anxiety trap lies.
Exactly. We expect a smooth diagonal line straight up the growth chart. But biology actually works in steps. You might have 3 weeks of rapid gains and then
A plateau.
a total plateau. Nothing happens for a week.
And that is exactly when parents start Googling failure to thrive at 2 in the morning.
Yes. But Dr. Yadav emphasizes that these pauses are often just energy reallocation.
What does that mean practically?
The body might be pausing on weight gain to focus on neural reorganization, or maybe a length spurt. Then, boom, a weight growth spurt follows right after. The plateau is a necessary part of the process.
It's almost like the system is buffering before the next download.
That is a great analogy. And speaking of downloads, we have to talk about the head.
Yes, let's get into the head.
Because there's a lot of focus in Dr. Yadav's material on head circumference. I think most people just see the doctor wrap the tape measure around the skull and assume they're just checking for hat size.
Right. It seems superficial. Like, who really cares about the hat size?
But you're arguing, well, the text is arguing that this is actually the most critical metric.
Yeah.
You cannot measure the brain directly in a standard checkup, so you measure the container.
Ah, okay. That makes sense.
Dr. Yadav notes that the brain nearly doubles in size in the first year. So that rapid expansion of the skull, specifically in those first 3 months, is neurological expansion happening in real time.
Which explains the fontanelle,
Yeah.
the soft spot. I remember being absolutely terrified of touching that spot on my niece.
Most people are. But it's designed to be tough, actually. It's essentially an expansion joint. If the skull were fused at birth, the brain would literally run out of room in week 2. That soft spot has to stay open to accommodate this absolute explosion of neural tissue.
This does lead to some shape anxiety, though. The document mentions positional flattening. Because the skull is so malleable, if a baby sleeps on the left side every night, they're going to look a bit lopsided.
And that creates a lot of cosmetic worry. Parents freak out thinking they've ruined the baby's head shape permanently.
Right.
But medically, it usually just confirms that the skull is doing its job. It's remaining soft and pliable. Dr. Yadav notes that unless it's severe, it corrects itself naturally as they start moving more and sitting up.
Okay, so we have this rapidly expanding brain sitting inside a rapidly growing body. Let's talk about how they actually learn to drive that vehicle, the motor development section.
Let's do it.
The source outlines a journey, and I love this phrase, from reflex to intention. I love that phrasing because it implies the baby isn't really in charge at the beginning.
They really aren't.
Mm-hmm.
In the first 2 months, they are essentially fighting a losing battle against gravity. Their movements are completely dominated by primitive reflexes.
Like the startle reflex.
Exactly. If you startle them, they throw their arms wide out the Moro reflex.
Yeah.
That is not a choice they are making. It's hardwired into the nervous system.
So when do they actually take the wheel? When does the thought, I want to do this, actually result in, I am doing this?
It really starts kicking in around month 3 or 4. This is the push-up phase. You see them on their stomachs, pushing up on their forearms.
Right.
This isn't just upper body strength developing. It's the neck muscles finally winning the fight against the weight of that massive head.
And then comes the rolling.
Yes. Side to side rolling first, then fully rolling over by 5 to 6 months.
Mm.
But the why here is what's truly fascinating. It's not just that the muscles got bigger. It's that the myelination in the brain has physically moved down the spinal cord.
Wait, can you unpack myelination for a second?
Sure. Think of a nerve like an electrical wire. If it's not insulated, the signal leaks out. It's fuzzy and slow.
Okay.
Myelin is a fatty substance that coats the nerves, acting just like rubber insulation on a wire. This allows the electrical signals to travel incredibly fast and clear. And this process happens from the head down.
From the head down.
Yes. That's why babies learn to control their eyes first, then their neck, then their arms, and finally, months later, their legs.
That is a brilliant way to visualize it. So they literally can't walk yet because the internet cable hasn't reached the legs.
Precisely.
Yeah.
The signal physically cannot get there fast enough or clear enough yet.
Hmm.
The hardware is there, but the wiring isn't live.
Let's look at the hands, because this is where that reflex to intention shift is the most obvious. 0 to 2 months, they have that absolute death grip. You put your finger in their palm and they crush it.
The palmar grasp. Again, pure reflex. They aren't holding your hand because they love you well. Not yet, anyway.
Right.
They're holding it because you triggered a physical switch in their palm.
Don't tell the grandparents that. They think it's pure affection.
Your secret's safe with me.
Yeah.
But the real magic happens at 3 to 4 months. The hands finally open.
This is huge.
It is. The brain has actually learned to inhibit that reflex. Now, reaching becomes voluntary. They see a toy, they want the toy, they send a specific command to the hand to open, reach, and grab.
And then by 6 months, they are transferring objects from hand to hand.
Which sounds so simple to us as adults, but think about the coordination required. You have to engage the left hand, cross the midline of your body, engage the right hand, and release the left hand at the exact millisecond the right hand grips.
That's intense.
It's a highly complex motor planning sequence involving both hemispheres of the brain communicating perfectly.
And what is the very first thing they do with that object once they've successfully transferred it? They shove it straight in their mouth.
Every single time.
And Dr. Yadav has a specific note here in the source. He says, this is not always teething.
Right. Parents see the drool and the chewing and immediately go buy teething gel. But so often, it is actually sensory learning. At this stage of development, the mouth has more nerve endings per square millimeter than the fingertips.
Really?
Yes. So they are effectively scanning the object. Is it hard? Soft? Cold? What's the texture?
So mouthing is data collection.
It is their primary interface for understanding the physical world. If they don't put it in their mouth, they don't really know what it is.
Let's move from physical interaction to social interaction, the communication section. Because honestly, this is the stuff that makes the sleepless nights actually worth it.
The social awakening.
Yeah. Because those first 2 months are, let's be honest, it's a one-way street. They cry, you serve. It is
Yeah.
highly transactional.
It's binary. Crying signals distress, silence signals okayness. There's no nuance. But around 3 to 4 months, you get the social smile, and the distinction Dr. Yadav makes here is vital. This is a responsive smile.
Meaning it's not just gas.
It is not gas. You smile at them, they process that facial expression, they recognize it as positive, and they intentionally mirror it back to you. That is the very beginning of empathy. It's the absolute foundation of human attachment.
And then the vocals start.
The cooing. Then by 5 or 6 months, the babbling. The classic baba and mama. But notice the reception side of this too. They start recognizing the primary caregiver's voice as distinct from others. And interestingly, they start understanding tone.
So they actually know when you're stressed.
They do. They can differentiate a happy, high-pitched voice from a stern or flat one.
Yeah.
They are actively reading the room.
There's a note here in the text about stranger awareness kicking in around 6 months. Usually parents find this super annoying because suddenly grandma can't hold the baby without a total meltdown, but you see this as a cognitive win.
A huge cognitive win. Think about what is required to have stranger anxiety. First, you need a solid memory. You need to know exactly who your people are. Then, you have to compare the face in front of you with the database of trusted faces in your brain, realize there is no match, and trigger a safety response.
Wow. So the meltdown just means their memory is working perfectly.
Exactly. It's a sign of strong attachment and advanced cognitive development. It means they know who represents safety.
I want to pivot to the part of the document that stresses parents out the most, but is probably the most valuable thing we'll discuss: normal variations versus red flags. Because Dr. Yadav keeps emphasizing this over and over. Milestones are ranges, not deadlines.
That is the mantra. Ranges, not deadlines. We tend to treat child development like a train schedule. If the train isn't at the station at exactly 4:00 p.m., something must be broken.
Right.
But biology is incredibly messy.
Right.
Some babies are observers. They just sit back and watch the world for months before moving. Some are movers. They wiggle constantly but don't babble much at all. Both of those can be completely normal.
Talk to me about the percentile myth. I feel like parents treat percentiles like grades in school. My kid is in the 90th percentile, so he's an A student.
And conversely, my kid is in the 10th percentile, so he's failing.
Exactly.
That is very dangerous thinking. Dr. Yadav clarifies that the number itself is almost totally irrelevant. A baby in the 10th percentile could be perfectly healthy. They're just a smaller human being. Someone has to be the smallest and someone has to be the biggest.
So what actually matters? If the number doesn't matter, what are we looking at?
The trend. The trajectory over time. If the 10th percentile baby stays right at the 10th percentile month after month, they're growing perfectly. They are staying in their own lane.
Okay.
The red flag is if a 50th percentile baby suddenly drops down to the 10th. That indicates a system failure, like something nutritional or metabolic. We look for the shape of the line, not the individual dot.
Okay, so if the trends are good, we relax. But Dr. Yadav does list some specific hard stops. Concrete signs that warrant a professional evaluation. Let's run through these, because vague worry is useless. Specific worry is actionable.
Agreed. Let's start with the social and sensory side. If there is no social smile by 3 months, that warrants a check. It suggests a potential disconnect in social processing.
Okay. What about visuals?
No visual tracking by 3 months. If you move a bright toy slowly in front of their face and their eyes don't follow it, that can be a vision issue or a neurological tracking issue.
What about physical tone? I've heard terms like low tone thrown around in parent groups.
This is nuanced but very important. We look for extremes. Floppy tone, where they feel like a rag doll or literally slip through your hands when you pick them up, is concerning. But so is hypertonia, which is extreme stiffness.
What does that actually look like?
If the baby is constantly arched backward, their hands are fisted tight, and they are really hard to relax or even dress. It's like they're flexing their muscles constantly. That suggests the muscles are getting way too much signal from the brain.
And asymmetry. That seemed like a big one in the text.
Persistent asymmetry. Now, all babies have a slight preference, sure. But if they only ever reach with the left hand and the right hand stays fisted all day, or they kick only with one leg while the other sort of drags, that's a red flag. The brain should be wiring both sides of the body roughly equally.
This is super helpful because it empowers observation. Instead of just vaguely wondering, does he look weird? You're looking for, is he tracking? Is he using both hands?
Exactly. It changes the mindset from generalized anxiety to specific, helpful monitoring.
Let's hit the lightning round. We pulled the most frantic 3.0 AM Google searches from the parent FAQs in the document. I'll throw you the topic. You give me the Dr. Yadav synthesis. Ready?
Let's do it.
Topic 1, tummy time. Is it actually necessary, or is it just a way to make babies angry? Because, man, they seem to hate it.
It is absolutely necessary. It's not just about arm strength. It's about skull shape and core stability. But Dr. Yadav says you don't need to do 20 minutes on day 1. Start with 1 minute. Build it up slowly. It's a workout. You can't expect them to love the gym on their first day.
Topic 2, sleep. The holy grail. Should my baby be sleeping through the night by 4 to 6 months?
Manage your expectations here. Sleeping through is a very fluid definition. Physiologically, many babies still need night feeds in this window. Dr. Yadav notes that frequent waking is usually completely normal unless, and this is the key, it's paired with poor growth. If they're growing well and waking up, they're just being babies.
Topic 3, drooling. He's soaking 3 bibs an hour. Are teeth coming tomorrow?
Probably not. The salivary glands just turn on fully around 3 to 4 months. The swallowing reflex hasn't quite caught up to the production rate yet, so you get lots of drool. It doesn't mean a tooth is cutting immediately.
Topic 4, the eyes. My baby looks cross-eyed sometimes.
Occasional crossing in the first few months. Totally normal. The eye muscles are still learning how to coordinate focus. But constant crossing or crossing that persists after 6 months. That definitely needs an ophthalmologist.
Last one, the witching hour, colic. Why does my baby scream from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. every night?
It is the classic developmental curve. It peaks right around 6 to 8 weeks. It is brutal, but Dr. Yadav emphasizes it as temporary. It usually resolves by month 3 or 4. If it's intense, you can check for things like reflux, but often it's just an immature nervous system getting totally overwhelmed by the day's sensory input. They are letting off steam.
It's basically a system crash at the end of the day.
Exactly. Too much data, not enough processing power. Reboot required.
So, stepping back from the crossed eyes and the growth charts for a second, when you look at this document as a whole, what is the message? Because it feels like there is a deeper philosophy hidden in all this medical data.
I think the core philosophy is consistency over perfection.
Unpack that.
The brain wiring, we talked about the myelination, the social loops. It doesn't happen because you showed them fancy flashcards or bought the most expensive organic crib. It happens through serve and return.
Serve and return.
It's a tennis analogy. The baby serves a ball, a cry, a coo, a look. You return it. You pick them up. You talk back to them. You make eye contact. That continuous back and forth is what physically builds the architecture of the brain.
So the interaction itself is the building block.
Right. Dr. Yadav makes a crucial point that early identification of issues is key because the infant brain is plastic. It's adaptable. But that adaptability works both ways. It absolutely needs that consistent, responsive environment to wire itself correctly.
I keep going back to that trend over snapshot idea. It feels like the ultimate antidote to modern parenting anxiety.
It really is. A single bad day is just data noise. A bad week might just be a growth spurt or a minor cold. But if the trend over 2 months is connection growth and new skills, you are winning.
And frankly, when you realize their brain is physically doubling in size and they're trying to operate a body that changes shape and weight every single week, you have to give them a little grace if they're cranky.
It is hard work being a baby. They are the hardest working people in the house, by far.
You know, before we wrap up, there's one thought that really struck me from all this talk about brain plasticity and serve and return.
Okay.
If the baby's brain is wiring itself based on the specific inputs it gets from you, your voice, your reactions, your facial expressions, then it's not just building a generic human brain.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
It's literally customizing its neural architecture to fit your specific family. Your quirks, your tone of voice, they're physically shaping the folds of their brain. You aren't just raising a human, you're literally building a companion perfectly tuned to your own frequency. Something for you to mull over the next time you're pacing the hallway at 3 a.m.
That is a beautiful way to look at it. Trust the biology and trust the trend.
Thanks for diving in with us. We'll see you next time.